He never owned this house and never took out a mortgage. He was still broke when this hit his account. So how did he just make more in one day than his job pays in 6 months? You've been told you need money, credit, or rich parents to invest in real estate. But the people who started with nothing? They know a different game. Controlling deals without owning them. Basically, using other people's money. Where's the line between a scammy, no money down pitch and the strategies real investors actually use to escape being broke? In the next few minutes, I'm going to follow one broke beginner through 3 real zero capital pathways. From bird dogging and wholesaling to house hacking and creative finance. And I'll show you exactly how the first real deal happened. In 90 days, our broke beginner will go from $0 to controlling a 6-figure property without a bankroll. The question is, will it make him rich or just expose how dangerous no money investing can be? Stick around, because I'm about to give you the whole playbook. Let's get one thing straight right now. When you hear no money down real estate, your BS detector should immediately go off. Because most of the time, it's garbage. Here's the truth that gurus won't tell you. No money down rarely means no cost. It means you're using other people's cash, credit, or collateral while you bring time, skills, or deal making. And there's always a cost. Say time, risk, and even reputation. An opportunity cost if it goes wrong. So if you're still watching, you're about to learn the real meaning of no money down. Before we go any further, you need to understand something. There are 2 completely different games in real estate. Game 1 is owning property. That means you're on the deed, you borrow money and take long-term risk with the goal to build long-term wealth. The other game is controlling deals, and this is where your focus should be as a beginner with no capital. Here's the beautiful truth most people miss. You don't need to own property to make money in real estate. You just need to control it. Think of it like this. Netflix doesn't own most of the content on their platform, but they control the rights to it. They're the middleman connecting content creators with viewers, and they're worth billions. You're going to do the same thing with real estate. Most broke beginners think they need to jump straight into Game 1. Big mistake. Because here's the brutal truth. While Game 1 investors are waiting years to build equity and cash flow, you can make your first $5,000 to $15,000 in the next 30 to 90 days by controlling just one deal. That money becomes your funding for marketing, education, and eventually your down payments when you're ready to start owning. Here's the smarter path. Your early goal isn't own 10 doors. It's to build skills, credibility, and some cash through low capital strategies that can lead to ownership later. Think of it like this. You're not trying to buy the restaurant on day 1. You're getting hired as a waiter, learning the business, saving your tips so you can buy the restaurant later. The controlling game teaches you the real business of real estate without risking capital you don't have. You're learning negotiation, market analysis, deal structure, and problem solving. You're building relationships with motivated sellers, cash buyers, contractors, and other investors. You're developing the skills that will make you successful when you eventually do start owning property. Make sense? Good. Because now I want you to meet someone. Meet Jordan. He's 26, works 2 jobs, has less than $1,000 saved, some credit card debt, and he lives in a city where the median home costs $350,000. Let me show you the hard numbers. His income, $3,200 per month. Rent, $1,400. Debt payments, $380. Living expenses, $1,100. Leftover, $320 per month. So here's the math that keeps Jordan up at night. 20% down payment on a $350 house equals $70,000. At $320 saved per month, that's over 18 years to save. But here's the gut punch. Every year Jordan waits, he loses rent income, equity appreciation, and tax benefits. Home prices in his market have gone up 6% per year for the last decade. By the time he saves $70,000, that same house will cost $420,000. The down payment, now $84,000. Waiting 5 to 10 years to save a 20% down payment basically prices Jordan out of the market. So Jordan has a choice. Wait 20 years and hope the math works out, or learn a different game entirely. He chose door number 2. And here's what happened in the next 90 days. Let me lay out the 3 major ladders we're going to explore in detail. Ladder 1. Make money before you own anything. Bird dogging plus wholesaling deals. Ladder 2. Live for almost free. House hacking with low down payment and roommate or tenant income. Ladder 3. Control properties without banks. Lease options, seller financing, and subject to deals done ethically and legally. Each ladder ends with a concrete first deal that someone actually used to escape being broke. Let's start with ladder 1. Jordan started with literally $0, no credit or savings he could risk. So he began with the absolute ground floor strategy, bird dogging. Bird dogging is the ground floor, the simplest, lowest risk way to break into real estate investing when you're completely broke and have zero experience. Here's what that means. A bird dog is someone who hunts for distressed or underpriced properties and passes those leads to investors in exchange for a finder's fee. Usually $500 to $1,500 per closed deal. And here's why this is perfect for someone broke. You don't need earnest money. There are no contracts in your name and icing on the cake. Minimal legal complexity. Just hustle, networking, and systems. That means driving through neighborhoods, filming houses with boarded windows, tall grass, and for sale by owner signs. He'd log the addresses and pull owner info from free county records online, send those leads to investors. Jordan also joins a local real estate investors association and online investor groups. He walks up to veteran investors and says, "I'll find deals for you. You teach me how this works. I'll be your bird dog in exchange for mentorship plus $500 to $1,500 per closed deal." The first investor brushes him off. Another agrees but never calls back. This shows how network quality matters as much as effort. But the third investor sends him a text that says, "That property on Maple you sent checks out. Here's the deal. I close on it, you get $500. Keep sending me these." That text changed everything because it was proof. Proof that you could make real money in real estate with no capital. Jordan said later, $500 for maybe 8 hours of total work. That's more per hour than I make at either of my jobs. This is proof that real money can be made with no capital, but the ceiling is still low unless Jordan moves into wholesaling. Then Jordan realizes something. I did all the work finding the deal. Why did I only make $500 while the investor made $20,000 on the flip? This is the exact moment most successful investors experience. Jordan wasn't mad at the investor. He was grateful for the $500 and the education, but he started asking himself the right questions. What was the investor doing that I'm not? What's the difference between finding a deal and controlling a deal? The answer hit him during his fourth bird dog deal. He watched the investor he was working with put the property under contract with just $500 in earnest money. The seller was desperate, behind on mortgage payments, and needed to close fast. The investor locked it in at $85,000, knowing an end buyer would pay $105,000 for it. 2 weeks later, the investor assigned that contract to a house flipper for $100,000 and pocketed $15,000. Jordan got his $750 bird dog fee. Which brings us to the next section. Here's how wholesaling works. A wholesaler signs a purchase agreement with a motivated seller at a discount, then sells or assigns their contractual rights to a cash buyer for a fee. Let me show you simple numbers. You contract with the seller at $180,000. You assign that contract to an investor at $195,000. The seller gets $180,000, and you keep a $15,000 assignment fee at closing. You never owned the house or got a mortgage. You only control a contract, and that contract is an asset you can sell. Now here's where it gets tricky. There are legal and ethical landmines you need to know about. For example, in many states, wholesalers must market the contract, not the property itself, and must avoid acting as an unlicensed agent representing others for a commission. Misuse can trigger regulatory issues or lawsuits, especially if the wholesaler promises things they can't deliver. So Jordan knew the rules. He thought he was ready. But his first attempts? Brutal. The cold calling and texting campaigns proved to be something else. Dozens of rejections. 1 or 2 angry responses. Even his first signed contract falls apart when he can't find a buyer before closing. He loses a small earnest money deposit and burns a relationship. Months of work, marketing costs, and the risk that a $0 strategy still has hidden financial and emotional costs. Jordan almost quit. He told me later, sitting in his car at night, "I thought this was supposed to be zero risk. The gurus don't tell you about this part, the deals that fall apart, the money you lose even when you have nothing." But then his mentor told him something that changed everything. You did everything right except one thing. You didn't build your buyer's list before you got the contract. Wholesaling backwards is expensive. Do it forwards. Find the buyers first, learn what they want, then go find it. In other words, you're not in real estate, you're in matchmaking. That changed Jordan's entire approach. Jordan spent the next 2 weeks building relationships. He went to 3 REIA meetings, and there he connected with a house flipper who just sold a property and had $80,000 in cash ready to deploy. Jordan asked him, "What are you looking for next?" The flipper said, 3-bed, 2-bath, under 220, needs cosmetic work but solid bones, east side of town. Jordan took notes. Now he had a buyer before he had a deal. 2 days later, he got a lead. Pre-foreclosure property. Owner 3 months behind on the mortgage. And didn't want to lose the house to auction. House needed $25,000 in repairs. After repair value, $285,000. Here's the timeline of Jordan's first real wholesale success. Day 1, Jordan meets the seller, builds rapport, explains how this works. Day 3, offer submitted. 195,000, 21-day close. 1,000 earnest money, inspection contingency that allowed Jordan to back out if needed. Day 5, seller counters 202. Day 6, Jordan counters 198, accepted. Day 7, Jordan calls the flipper from his buyer's list. He says, "I've got your deal. Purchase price is 198. I'm assigning it to you for 210. So your all-in is 210 plus 25 in repairs. That's 235 total. A RV is 285. You're looking at 50,000 in profit." The flipper says, "Send me the contract." Day 20, closing day. This is the psychological roller coaster. Jordan told me later, "I'd been awake for 30 hours. I kept thinking something would go wrong. The buyer would back out. The seller would change their mind. The title company would say I couldn't do this." The next day, Jordan checks his bank account. Balance, $12,847. He said, $12,000. I've never had 4 figures in my account, ever. This is more than I made in 6 months at my first job, and I did it by controlling a piece of paper. This is a life-changing check without owning a single property. So Jordan proved it's possible. You can make real money in real estate with zero capital. Within a year, Jordan had done 14 wholesale deals, averaging $6,500 per transaction. That's over $90,000 in wholesale fees, all without ever owning a single property, qualifying for a mortgage, or risking his credit. But here's the thing about wholesaling. It's one and done hits. Every deal is a new hunt. You're hustling every week, and if you stop, the money stops. Jordan told me, "I made $12,000, but I also realized I don't want to do this forever. I want something stable, something that pays me while I sleep." Wholesaling can generate life-changing checks without owning a single property. But what if you're sick of one-and-done hits and want something more stable, like living for almost free while you build equity? That's where house hacking comes in, and that's exactly what we're covering in part 2 of this series. I'm going to show you how to use strategies like house hacking and creative financing to finally start owning property, even if you're still broke. If you want to know how Jordan went from making $12,000 wholesale checks to living completely free in a 4-unit property while building 6 figures in equity, you need to watch part 2.